Our movie today begins in an industrial city called Fienville, and we discover that this city has nothing natural in it. Everything is made of plastic or metal. That's because the people of the city replaced natural trees with artificial ones made of plastic. And because of what happened, the air got polluted, so they started producing clean air and selling it in bottles. Despite all that, the people of the city are happy because they truly believe that the artificial trees are very beautiful. At that moment, we see a young boy named Ted riding his motorbike and speeding off, and he keeps riding around the city until he reaches a certain place. There, he takes out a toy plane and flies it into the sky. Then, he purposely crashes it onto one of the houses. When Ted goes to ring the doorbell, a beautiful girl named Audrey opens the door. She asks if his toy landed in her yard again like every day. That's when we realize Ted does this every day because he has a crush on Audrey. She takes him inside and shows him the drawings she made on the house. At that moment, Ted is completely amazed by her artwork. And he asks about the meaning of those drawings. So Audrey tells him that they're drawings of real trees, and that trees used to be everywhere in the past. She says their leaves were softer than silk. Audrey looks really happy and excited as she tells Ted that her biggest wish is to see a real tree growing in her own garden. Ted gets excited and asks her, "If a guy brought you a real tree, what would you do?" Audrey replies, "I'd marry him without even thinking twice." In the middle of the day, we see Ted sitting with his mom and grandmother at lunch. Ted asks how he can get a real tree. His mom is surprised by the question and doesn't understand why he would need a real tree, especially since they already have one that works with a remote. Ted tells her that he wants a real tree, not just one made of plastic materials. At that moment, the grandmother jumps in and tells him he needs to find someone called the Onsler. Ted is confused and doesn't understand what she means. At that moment, the mom interrupts and tells the grandma that this isn't the right time for her silly fantasy stories. So the grandma asks her to go upstairs and bring her dentures, since she forgot them on the upper floor. As soon as the mom leaves, the grandma puts in her dentures and explains to Ted that the Onsler is the only person who knows what really happened to the trees. And if he wants to find a real tree, he has to go talk to him. She tells him that the Onsler lives far away in a deserted place with no life around, outside the city. Then she starts scaring him, saying the Onsler will be the one to reveal everything to him. Ted gets excited and jumps on his bike, heading toward the city wall. There, he sees a very tall gate. By chance, he finds a button and presses it. Suddenly, a staircase comes out from the wall leading up to the gate. Ted rides his bike up the steps and opens the gate. Then the scene shifts to a giant blimp, and inside it, we see a man named O'Hare. We find out that he's the owner of the air-selling company. Two of his designers approach him with an idea for a new product: selling air in small plastic bottles. They explain that by producing more plastic bottles, the pollution will increase due to their factories, which means more people will need clean air, and that will boost their sales. O'Hare loves the idea and gets really excited. Suddenly, his guards come in and show him footage of Ted leaving the city. O'Hare gets angry and tells them to find out what that boy is planning. We return to Ted, who enters through the gate and rides his bike into an area filled with factory waste, which is spread all over the place. Ted keeps riding his bike until he reaches another gate. There, he's completely shocked when he sees that the outside world has become a terrifying and scary place. Despite that, Ted continues on his path through the polluted air, riding past a huge number of trees that has been cut down. He manages to narrowly avoid a massive tree-cutting machine, even though it's broken. He keeps going quickly until he reaches a deep ravine. There, Ted gets an idea. He uses a wooden plank to cross it. Unfortunately, he falls into the ravine, but even so, he quickly gets up and manages to make it to the other side. Ted keeps walking until he reaches the Onsler's house, which looks scary and creepy. Despite that, Ted gets closer to the house and as soon as he rings the doorbell, he falls into a trap that launches him into the air and then drops him back to the ground. Suddenly, a mechanical claw appears, grabs him at the last second, and pulls him up toward a window of the house. At that moment, the Onsler appears from behind the window and starts yelling angrily at Ted, telling him to go away. As soon as Ted is lowered back to the ground, a shoe comes flying and hits him. Ted gets annoyed by what just happened and asks the Onsler what happened to the trees. The claw then picks Ted up again and brings him close to the Onsler, who is surprised that someone still cares about the trees. Onsler tells Ted that he will explain everything about the trees and how they all disappeared. Then he takes him down to the ground and tells him that he himself is the reason behind everything that happened. And it was all because of his invention called the Thneed. Onsler begins to recall his memories from the past and starts telling his story to Ted, back when he was a young man. We see him talking to his mother and family, telling them that he's going to change the world with his inventions. But at the time, his mother and family laughed at him and didn't take him seriously. Nevertheless, Onsler took his car and set off on his journey to change the world. During this journey, he began searching for the right material to create the Thneed. After a while, the Onsler manages to reach a beautiful forest. There, he sees many trees and is completely amazed by how they look and by the number of fish that live there. He's also delighted by the group of cute animals living in the forest. The Onsler feels so happy that he starts singing, and all the animals gather around him, singing and dancing with joy. But as soon as the Onsler begins to take out the equipment he plans to use from his truck, all the animals are afraid of him and want to attack him. But the Onsler calms them down and gives them lots of marshmallows. As soon as the animals taste them, they really like the flavor. Then the Onsler takes his axe and goes to cut down a tree. All the animals get scared and start trembling from fear. As soon as the tree falls, the Onsler takes it and leaves. Because of what he did, a strong storm forms over the forest, and a glowing light comes out of the fallen tree. Suddenly, lightning strikes it, and the storm disappears. A strange creature appears, clearly upset because the tree was cut down. He starts placing stones around it, and the animals help him clean up. They're all saddened by what happened to the tree. At the same time, we see Onsler taking the remains of the tree, when suddenly the strange creature shows up. He confronts Onsler and tells him to take his stuff and leave. Onsler mocks him and asks who he is. The creature gets angry and reveals that he's the guardian of the forest, and his name is the Lorax. His main mission is to protect the trees. Lorax is surprised that the Onsler didn't see the storm and the lightning that just happened. At that moment, it becomes clear that the Onsler doesn't care about what the Lorax is saying, and he offers him a marshmallow. This makes the Lorax angry, and he starts taking down the ropes of the Onsler's tent. The Onsler chases after him and quickly puts the ropes back in place. The Lorax then takes advantage of a moment when the Onsler almost accidentally hits a small bear, and uses it to scare the other animals, making them think the Onsler is dangerous and will destroy the forest. The Onsler loses his temper and says that he'll cut down as many trees as he wants, and that no one can stop him. As soon as he enters his tent, he finds the Lorax next to him, warning him that if he doesn't leave the forest by tonight, he'll unleash the wrath of the forest on him, and then he walks away. We then return to the present time, where we see the Onsler blaming himself for not listening to the Lorax. This makes Ted even more eager, and he asks the Onsler to tell him the rest of the story. But the Onsler refuses and tells him to come back tomorrow. Ted says goodbye and leaves. The next morning, we see Ted having breakfast with his mother and grandmother. Just before he leaves the house, his mom stops him and says that today is a day off, and he should spend more time with them. So they start playing together, and the grandmother plays very slowly on purpose. Eventually, the mom gets bored and walks away. That's when the grandmother secretly tells Ted to go back to the Onsler, so Ted heads out and leaves. While Ted is walking down the road, he bumps into O'Hare's guards and falls to the ground. At that moment, O'Hare arrives and gets out of his car. He welcomes Ted and asks him why he's so interested in trees. He then explains that he makes a lot of money from selling air, unlike trees, which produce air for free. O'Hare gets annoyed and threatens Ted, trying to scare him. He warns him not to go looking for trees again and says that if he does, he'll get hurt. Ted gets scared and says that he needs to go back to his mom. Before he leaves, O'Hare tells him that he has cameras installed all over the city. After that, the guards take O'Hare back to the car and they drive away. Despite what happened, Ted leaves the city again and goes to the Onsler's house. This time, he manages to avoid the trap in front of the door. He asks the Onsler to continue telling him the rest of the story. The Onsler is surprised that Ted came back and asks him why he's so interested in the trees. Ted tells him that he's doing it because his friend Audrey loves trees, and he decided to get one for her. The Onsler is touched and begins telling the rest of the story. We return once again to the past, where we see the Onsler feeling very happy because he was able to make a Thneed from the tree's fibers. After that, he lies down on his bed, exhausted. At that moment, a group of bears comes in, lifts the bed, and following the Lorax's instructions, carries it out of the house and places it in the water. But then they are surprised to see that a small bear is still on the bed. At that moment, the fish grab the blanket and start pulling to stop the bed, but unfortunately, they fail. The Lorax and the animals start running after the bed to save the little bear. They climb up the trees and hang onto each other to try and reach him, but the small bear refuses to grab the Lorax's hand. To make things worse, the Onsler puts his foot in the water and accidentally changes the direction of the bed. Suddenly, the bed flips over in the water, waking the Onsler up from his sleep. He gets startled by everything happening around him, and they all end up heading towards some rapids. As soon as they pass through the rapid, they are surprised when the Lorax pushes a rock, causing it to roll down and hit a branch, which then falls onto the bed and launches it into the air, moving it just in time. After that, the Lorax gets scolded by two small bears, and he goes to check on the Onsler, who had lost consciousness. Even though he's okay, the Onsler is very upset that they tried to get rid of him. The Lorax tells him that it was all an accident. And the Onsler starts to understand that all the animals in the forest care deeply about the trees, and that they should never be cut down. The Onsler smiles and promises that he won't cut down any more trees, and that he'll take care of the forest no matter what. They all cheer and leave. The next morning, the Onsler is shocked to find the Lorax and all the animals sleeping with him in his house. He quickly gets overwhelmed by the antics of the fish, the birds, the Lorax, and all the other animals. He realizes that he's going to the city to sell the Thneed, and he explains to the animals that the Thneed is a multi-purpose item. It can be used as a hat, a floor cloth, or even something for sumo wrestlers. He takes the Thneed and leaves for the city. Once there, he starts singing to people, trying to promote it. But they mock him and make fun of both him and his Thneed. The Onsler keeps trying for days to sell it, but unfortunately, he fails. He gets frustrated and very upset and decides to give up. He throws the Thneed and it lands on a strange woman who ends up loving it because it becomes a beautiful hat. Everyone around her is impressed too. As soon as the Onsler returns to the forest, the Lorax surprises him. The Onsler begins to accept the situation and starts living with the animals, even cooking food for them. While all of this is happening, they suddenly feel the ground shake. When they go outside, they're shocked to see a huge crowd of people approaching, led by the woman with the Thneed. Everyone is singing about the Onsler and asking him to make more Thneeds, saying that they're useful for so many things. They lift the Onsler up and celebrate him. The Onsler is overjoyed and calls his mother, asking her to come over and to bring the whole family with her. At that moment, it's clear that the Lorax isn't happy about any of this. Then we return to the present time, where we see Ted and his grandmother. She asks him if the Onsler told him how to get a real tree. Coincidentally, Ted runs into Audrey. His grandmother asks him if that's the girl he likes. Ted gets flustered and leaves quickly. A little while later, Audrey returns to her house and starts admiring all the drawings of trees that she had made. We then go back to Ted, who arrives once again at the city wall. He's shocked to find that O'Hare has locked the ladder to prevent anyone from leaving the city again. But even with that, Ted doesn't give up. He rides his bike at full speed, jumps across rooftops, and manages to reach the wall. He lands on the ground outside and leaves the city, heading to the Onsler's house. He gives the Onsler the marshmallow he bought for him, and the Onsler thanks him and begins to tell the rest of the story. We return once again to the past, where we see a car speeding recklessly. As soon as it stops, the Onsler's family gets out, including his mother, who says she always knew he would succeed. The Onsler is surprised because that's not what she used to say before. Then his mom instructs the family to turn their car into a giant house. The Lorax is shocked and tells them that no one is allowed to live here, no matter what. But the Onsler tries to calm him down and explains that this is his family and they need to help him grow his business. The Lorax eventually agrees and tells the Onsler, "A tree falls the way it leans. Be careful which way you lean," then walks away. As the Onsler begins planning his project, his mother points out that collecting the tree fibers without cutting down the trees takes too long. She suggests they start cutting the trees instead, which would make everything faster. At first, the Onsler refuses the idea, but his mother eventually convinces him. So his brothers begin cutting down the trees without hesitation, and even his aunt grabs the Lorax and throws him far away to stop him from reaching the Onsler. The Onsler starts singing to himself, saying that he's going to face all the challenges and do everything he's ever dreamed of, that he won't rest until he achieves his goal. And sure enough, his life begins to change gradually. He chooses to use a tree-cutting machine and builds a factory to produce Thneeds. He ignores all of the Lorax's warnings and fills the valley with his factory. The only thing that matters to him now is that his fortune keeps growing more and more. He's no longer afraid of future consequences. After some time, we see that the animals' lives have gotten much worse. Then, when the Onsler enters his office, he's surprised to find the Lorax waiting for him. The Lorax asks him if he's finally happy now. The Onsler turns his back on him and challenges the Lorax to stop him if he can, telling him to use his power as the guardian of the forest. He becomes aggressive and starts yelling at the Lorax, full of anger. A Onsler steps outside the factory and declares that no one can stop him. But suddenly, the last tree in the forest is cut down. In that moment, the Onsler snaps out of his arrogance and realizes that he has completely destroyed the forest. Meanwhile, O'Hare, who was still working as a cleaner at the time, notices that the air has become extremely polluted. That's when he gets a brilliant idea. Back with the Onsler, his mother arrives and mocks him for being a failure, now that the factory has shut down because there are no trees left. She and the rest of the family jump into the car and drive away, leaving him behind. At that moment, the Lorax arrives and explains to the Onsler that the animals will have to leave now to search for a new place to live. Even the Onsler's own donkey leaves with them. The Lorax takes a deep breath, then lifts off and flies into the sky, returning to the clouds. At that moment, the Onsler feels deeply upset about what he's done. Then we return once again to the present time and see that Ted is very sad about what happened to the trees. The Onsler explains that ever since the Lorax left, he's been full of regret for everything he did. He pulls out a seed and tosses it to Ted, explaining that this is the very last tree seed left. He asks Ted to plant it in the middle of the city so that everyone can see it and protect it. Ted feels encouraged and takes the seed, then jumps on his bike. A little while later, Ted returns to the city using the sewers. He throws his helmet at the cat-shaped camera and destroys it. But despite that, the cat still manages to capture footage of the seed he's carrying. Then Ted goes to Audrey and asks her to meet him at his house. As soon as he climbs into his room through the window, his mother calls for him, so Ted hides the seed and goes out. At that moment, a water bottle falls on the seed. Later, they make up, and the mother offers to bake cookies for them. O'Hare then asks Ted to hand over the seed he's carrying, but when Ted refuses, O'Hare orders his guards to search the room. But to everyone's surprise, the seed has completely disappeared. Ted takes advantage of the confusion, and suddenly his mother comes in and kicks O'Hare and his guards out of the house. Then Ted goes to his grandmother and finds that she has the seed. He's relieved when he sees that it has already started to sprout, and they're all amazed by it. Audrey arrives at that moment, and Ted shows her the seed. They all realize that they're going to plant it in the middle of the city. Audrey is really touched because Ted did all of this for her. Meanwhile, we see one of O'Hare's guards watching the house. At that moment, Ted's mom drives out of the garage with Ted in the car. She speeds off quickly, and the guard starts chasing them. He activates his jet-powered gear and races after them, crashing through everything in his way until he finally catches up and corners their car at the end of the road. But at that moment, they're both surprised while on their way to the center of the city. O'Hare and a second guard are following them in a blimp, and they jump out of it using jetpacks to fly after them. Ted starts running at full speed, cleverly circling around the first guard's car, then quickly jumps and gets into the elevator that takes them all up. As soon as they reach the platform, O'Hare sees the seed and uses a grappling hook to try and grab it. But instead, he gets caught in the fan, which changes its direction and blows the seed into the air. Ted immediately runs after it, trying to catch it before O'Hare and his guards can reach it. Luckily, the seed falls into a water jug, but then the guard driving the car loses control and crashes, knocking over all the jugs, including the one with the seed, and they all spill and get destroyed on the road. But unfortunately, O'Hare arrives and grabs the jug that has the seed inside. Just before he can take it, Ted suddenly launches himself in O'Hare's direction, sliding under the jug. At that moment, Grandma uses her cane to snatch the jug from above and takes it. A little while later, Ted and the others arrive at the center of the city, but they don't know how they're going to reach the soil. That's when Grandma jumps into the excavator, drives it forward, and crashes it into O'Hare's statue, knocking its head to the ground and breaking the pavement, revealing the soil underneath. At that moment, Ted explains to the people of the city that they did all of this so they could plant a real tree. Then one of the townspeople steps forward and asks what they would even gain from planting a tree. That's when O'Hare steps in and starts scaring everyone, claiming that trees release a sticky substance that attracts poisonous insects and that they're very dangerous for children. He tricks the townspeople into believing the seed is dangerous and that they need to capture Ted. So Ted, his grandmother, and Audrey run away and jump into the excavator. Ted drives it fast and crashes it into the city wall several times until it finally breaks down. At that moment, the townspeople are shocked when they see how terrible the world outside has become without trees. Ted takes the opportunity to speak up and tells them that he's standing up to the trees, that life in their city isn't perfect and never will be without nature. He explains that everything will only get worse in the future if they don't plant the seed. At that moment, O'Hare tries to convince the people otherwise, telling them that trees are useless. But everyone there believes Ted's words, and they start singing together, saying that Ted deserves a chance. They all agree to help him plant the last seed. They jump and celebrate while singing as they head to the center of the city. Meanwhile, one of the guards straps O'Hare to a jetpack and blasts him far away from them. Later, Audrey stands beside Ted as he plants the seed in the soil, feeling proud of what he's done. Over time, the tree grows, and thanks to it, trees begin to spread all over the land again. As for the Onsler, he finally comes out of his house, happy, and he's moved when he sees the Lorax coming down from the sky. They smile and hug each other. And in the end, Ted is finally able to fulfill the wish of the girl he loves. And he succeeds in saving his city after understanding the true meaning of things.